about fertilizer. In this article, we have top questions. What is a fertilizer? Why do farmers use fertilizers in agriculture? What are the main types of fertilizers? How do fertilizers help plants grow? Fertilizer, natural or artificial substance containing the chemical elements that improve growth and productiveness of plants. Fertilizers enhance the natural fertility of the soil or replace chemical elements taken from the soil by previous crops. Soil fertility is the quality of the soil that enables it to provide compounds. What means compounds? Let's check. Compounds, something formed by a union of elements or parts. Okay. Soil fertility is a quality of a soil that enables it to provide compounds, other words, molecules, or mix molecules, in adequate amounts and proper balance to promote growth of plants when other factors, such as light, moisture, temperature, and soil structure, are vulnerable. Soil fertility is the quality of the soil that enables it to provide compounds, is adequate amounts and proper balance to promote growth of plants when other factors, such as light, moisture, temperature, and soil structure, are variable. Where fertility of the soil is not good, natural or manufactured materials may be added to supply the needed plant nutrients. These are called fertilizers. Needed plant nutrients. There are called fertilizers, although the term is generally applied to largely inorganic materials other than lime or gypsum. Gypsum common sulfate material or like glaze crystal, sulfate material of great commercial importance composed of hydrated calcium sulfate. Calcium sulfate, and in well-developed crystals, the mineral commonly has been called selenite. The fibrous massive arty has a silky luster and is called satin spar. Resistance saluted, blah blah blah. Essential plant nutrients. In total, plants need at least 16 elements, of which the most important are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. How I know phosphorus used in cells to communications. Plants obtain carbon from the atmosphere. And hydrogen and oxygen from water. Other nutrients are taken up from the soil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Although plants contain sodium, iodine, and cobalt, these are apparently not essential. This is also true of silicon and aluminium. iodine. What the hell? Okay. Iodine. Carbon. Carbon. Cool. Hydrogen. Let's check elements. Hydrogen. Okay, we read about it in next videos. Let's continue. But I need make stop. Okay, let's continue. Overall chemical analysis indicates that the total supply of nutrients in soils is usually high in comparison with the requirements of crop plants. Much of this potential supply, however, is bound tightly in forms that are not released to crops fast enough to give satisfactory growth. Because of this, the farmer is interested in measuring the available nutrient supply as contrasted to the total nutrient supply. When the available supply of a given nutrient becomes depleted, its absence becomes a limiting factor in plant growth. Accessible quantities of some nutrients may cause a decrease in yield, however, deplete to use most or all of something important to greatly reduce the amount of something. Activities such as logging and mining deplete our natural resources. Reduce amount of some things. Okay. When the available supply of a given nutrient becomes depleted, its absence becomes a limiting factor in plant growth. What means limiting factor? Density dependent factor. In ecology, any force that affects the size of a population of living things is responsible to the density of the population, the number of individuals per unit area. Density-independent factors are often arise from biological phenomena rather than from physical and chemical phenomena. Blah blah. Factors are sometimes called regulated factors because population density. Okay. Nutrition is not indefinitely and limit factor. Okay, determining nutrients needs. Determination of a crop's nutrient needs is an essential aspect of fertilizer technology. The appearance of a growing crop may indicate a need for fertilizer. The loss in some plants the need for more or different nutrients may not be easily observable. If such a problem exists, its nature must be diagnosed. The degree of deficiency must be determined, and the amount and kind of fertilizer needed for a given yield must be found. There is no table for detailed examination of plants and soil conditions in the field, following by simple fertilizer tests, quick tests of plants, tissues, and analysis of soils and plants. Chloropsis, a unicorn plant with chloropsis left contrasted with a healthy unicorn plant, right? Corn plant. Some plants show symptoms of poor nutrition. Chlorasis, plant, general yellow or pale green color. For example, indicates lack of sulfur and nitrogen. Ah, if in growth, nutrients like sulfur and nitrogen has low level or low amount of molecules, then plants can change colors. His leaves can yellow and other colors, I think. Okay, iron deficiently produces white or pale yellow tissue. Iron, okay. Iron make white or yellow tissue. Symptoms can be misinterpreted, however. Plant disease can produce appearances resembling mineral deficiently, as can various organisms. Through or improve cultivation or fertilizer application, each may create deficiency symptoms. After few diagnoses, the conclusions may be confirmed by experiments in a greenhouse or by making strip tests in the field. In strip tests, the fertilizer elements suspect of being deficient are added singly or in combination, and the result in plant growth observed. Next, it is necessary to determine the existence of the deficiency. An experiment in the field can be conducted by adding nutrients to the crop at various rates. The resulting response of yield in relation to amounts of nutrients supplied will indicate the supplying power of the unfertilized soil in terms of bushels of tons of produce. What means yield? Yield to produce or provide something such as a plant or crop. Produce. New methods have yielded promising results in the field. The seeds yield a rich oil. The soil should yield good crops. Yield or my plant generates leaves. Okay, I repeat to understand. An experiment in the field can be conducted by adding nutrients to the crop at various rates. The resulting response of yields in relation to amounts of nutrients supplied will indicate the supplying power of the unfertilized soil in terms of bushels or tons of produce. If the increase in yield is large, this practice will show that the soil has too little of a given nutrient. Such field experiments may not be practical because they can cost too much in time and money. Soil testing laboratories are available in most areas. They conduct chemical soil tests to estimate the availability of nutrients. Commercial soil testing kits give results that may vary inaccurate, depending on techniques and interpretation. Actually, the most accurate system consists of laboratory analysis of the nutrient contents of plant parts, such as the leaf. The results, when correlated which yield response to fertilizer application in field experiments can give the best estimate of deficiently. Further development of remote sensing techniques such as infrared photography are under study and may ultimately become the most valuable technique for such estimates. The economics of fertilizers. The practical goal is to determine how much nutrient material to add. Since the farmer wants to know how much profit to expect when buying fertilizer, the tests are interpreted as an estimation of increased crop production that will result from nutrient additions. The cost of nutrients must be balanced against the value of the crop or even against alternative procedures such as investing the money in something else with a greater potential return. The law of diminishing returns is well exemplified in fertilizer technology. Past a certain point, equal inputs of chemical produce less and less yield increase. What means this diminishing returns? Diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns says that if you keep increasing one factor in production of goods, such as your workforce, while keeping all other factors the same, you will reach a point below which additional increases will result a progressive decline in output. In other words, there are points when adding more inputs will begin to hamper the production process. For example, take a farmer with a limited number of acres. If the farmer has too few workers to farm the land, the farmer won't be able to produce the maximum crop the land can yield. Adding more workers will likely increase the level of production to a point, but if the farmer goes below this limit, production will begin to fall, simply because there are too many workers and not enough land. This principle applies to almost every kind of production process. Unless all the production factors are changed, the excessive increase of a single input will lead to a progressive decline in output. Okay, economists once believed that population growth would eventually expand to a point where the amount of goods produced per person would begin to decrease. In other words, the level of diminishing returns would eventually become a factor on a regional or global scale. This would lead to the wide-scale poverty and suffering, which would eventually limit population growth. Although this principle may apply to stagnant or underdeveloped economies, it's not the case for economies that work to continuously advance their population production technologies. What my early economics did not factor in was the impact of scientific and technical advances in contrast to stagnant economies, progressive economics, with advanced techniques, blah 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 blah. Okay. The practical goal is to determine how much nutrient material to add. Since the farmer wants to know how much profit to accept when buying fertilizer, The tests are interpreted as an estimation of increased crop production that will result from nutrient additions. The cost of nutrients must be balanced against the value of a crop or even against alternative procedures, such as investing the money in something else with a greater potential return. The level of diminishing returns is well exemplified in fertilizer technology. Past a certain point, equal inputs of chemical pro- produce past a certain point, equal inputs of chemical produce less and less yield increase. The goal of the farmer is to use fertilizer in such a way that the most profitable application rate is implied. Ideal fertilizer application also minimizes excess and ill-timed application, which is not only wasteful for the farmer but also harmful to nearby waterways. Unfortunately, water pollution from fertilizer runoff, which has a sphere of impact that extends far beyond the farmer and the fields, is a negative externality that is not accounted for the costs and prices of the unregulated market. What means water pollution? Water pollution, the release of substances into subsurface groundwater or into lakes, streams, reefs, estuaries, and oceans to the point that the substance interferes with beneficial, beneficial use of the water or with natural functioning of ecosystems. In addition to the release of substances such as chemicals, trash of, or microorganisms, water pollution may include the release of energy in the form of radioactivity or heat into bodies of water. Water pollution, metals from industrial production, waste, contaminate surface water. Okay. Runoff, an additional race consists of election that's heat because water from rain or show that flows over the blah blah blah. Negative externality. Air pollution. Pollution. Okay, I understand what means pollution. Industrials pollute his nom, nom, the smoke and other negative externality in economics, market failure, the sodium. Okay. Unfortunately, water pollution from fertilizer runoff, which has a sphere of impact that extends far beyond the farmer and the fields, is a negative externality that is not accounted for in the cost and prices of the unregulated market. Fertilizers can aid in making profitable changes in farming. Operators can reduce costs per unit of production and increase the margin of return over total cost by increasing rates of application of fertilizer on principal cash and feed crops. They are then they are then in a position to invest in soil conservation and other improvements that are needed when shifting acreage from surplus crops to other uses. Okay, I make pause and we continue. Okay, Continue. Synthetic fertilizers. Modern chemical fertilizers include one or more of the three elements that are most important in plant nutrition: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Of secondary importance are the elements sulfur, magnesium, and calcium. Secondary importance: sulfur, magnesium, calcium, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. NPP, SMT. Most nitrogen fertilizers are obtained from synthetic ammonia. This chemical compound, nitrogen and hydrogen, is used either as a gas or in a water solution. This chemical compound, ammonia, is used either as a gas or in a water solution, or it is converted into salts such as ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, and ammonium phosphate. But packing house wastes, treated garbage, sewage, and manure are also common sources of it. I not understand. Check this. Ammonium nitrate. Ammonium, nitrogen atom, 3 hydrogen atoms, plus oxygen, nitrogen, nitric acid. Atoms equal ammonium nitrate. Nitrogen, oxygens, hydrogens. Okay. This just go to here. And we get this molecule. Okay, most nitrogen fertilizers are obtained from synthetic ammonia. This chemical compound is used either as a gas or in a water solution, or it is converted into salts such as ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, like this, and ammonium phosphate. But packing house wastes, treated garbage, sewage, and manure are also common sources of it, because its nitrogen content is high and is readily converted to ammonia in the soil. Urea is one of the most concentrated nitrogenous fertilizers. Interesting. Urea chemical compound, a diamide of carbonic acid. It is formula. Urea has important uses as fertilizer and feed supplement, as well as a starting material for the manufacture of plastics. And okay, it is colorless crystalline substance that melts. Blah blah blah. Okay, is one of the most concentrated nitrogen fertilizers. An inexpensive compound, it is incorporated in mixed fertilizers, as well as being applied alone to the soil or sprayed on foliage. Foliage are the leaves of a plant or many plants. Leaves. special fertilizer sprayed to the leaves of a plant with formaldehyde. It gives methyl area fertilizers, which release nitrogen slowly, continuously, and uniformly. A full year supply being applied at one time. Formaldehyde, human brain, and formalin. Preserved formalin. Formaldehyde, HCO, as an organic compound, the simplest of the aldehydes, used in large amounts in a variety of chemical manufacturing processes. It is also produced principally by the vapor phase oxidation of methanol and is commonly sold as formalin, as 77% aqueous solution. Formalin may use dehydrated to trixine, a crystalline trimer to an amorphous polymer paraformaldehyde, which is convenient source of cases formaldehyde. Okay. Phosphorus fertilizers include calcium phosphate. Phosphorus fertilizers include calcium phosphate derived from phosphate rock or bones. Phosphorite rock with a high concentration of phosphates in nodular or compact masses. The phosphates may be derived from a variety of sources, including marine invertebrates that secrete shows of calcium phosphate in the bones and excrement of vertebrates. Okay. Phosphorus fertilizers include calcium phosphate derived from phosphorite or bones. The more soluble superphosphate and triple superphosphate preparations are obtained by the treatment of calcium phosphate with sulfuric and phosphoric acid, respectively. Potassium fertilizers, namely potassium chloride and potassium sulfate, are mined from potash deposits of commercially produced potassium compounds. Almost 95% of them are used in agriculture as fertilizer. What means potash? Potash. Various potassium compounds, chiefly crude potassium carbonate. The name causes potash, potassa, and lysophrequency used for potassium hydroxide. The potassium in fertilizer terminology, potassium oxide is called potash. Potash soap is a sort soap made from the lye leached from wood ashes. Okay. Mixed fertilizers contain more than one of the three major nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Fertilizer grades is a conventional expression that indicates the percentage of plant nutrients in a fertilizer. Thus, 10-20-10 grade contains 10% nitrogen, 20% phosphoric oxide, and 10% potash. Nitrogen, phosphoric oxide, potash. Mixed fertilizers can be formulated in hundreds of ways. Okay, organic fertilizers and practices. The use of manure and compost as fertilizers is probably almost as old as agriculture. Many traditional farming systems still rely on this table fertilizers, and their use is vital to the productivity of certified organic farms, in which synthetic fertilizers are not permitted. Manure, a mixture of animal excrement and straw peeled in a field in France. Okay. Farm manure, among sources of organic matter and plant nutrients. Farm manure has been a major importance. Manure is understood to mean to refuse from stables and barnyards, including both excreta and straw or other bedding material. Large amounts of manure are produced by livestock. Such manure has value in maintaining and improving soil because of the plant's nutrients, humus, and organic substrates contained in it. What means manure? Organic material is used to fertilize land, usually consisting of the feces and urine of domestic livestock, with or without a combined litter such as straw, hay, or bedding. Farm animals void most of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that is present in the food they eat, and these constituents an enormous fertility resource. In some countries, human excrement is also used. Livestock manure is less rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash than synthetic fertilizers, and hence must be applied in much greater quantities than the latter. A ton from khalid hogs or horses usually contain only 10 pounds of nitrogen, 5 pounds of phosphorus, pentoxide, and 10 pounds of potash. But mature is rich in organic matter, or humus, and thus improves the soil's capacity to absorb and store water, such preventing erosion. Much of the potassium and nitrogen in manure can be lost through leaching as the material is exposed to rainfall before being applied to the field. These nutrient losses may be prevented by such methods of stacking manure under cover or in pits to prevent leaching, spreading it on fields as soon as it is feasible, and spreading preservative materials in the stable. Okay. Humus. Sorry. Humus, non-living, finely divided organic matter in soil, derived from microbial decomposition of plant and animal substances. Humus, which ranges in color from brown to black, consists of about 16% carbon, 6% nitrogen, and smaller amounts of phosphorus and sulfur. As humus decomposes, its components are changed into forms usable by plants. Okay. Due to potential for harmful human pathogens, the UCD and Nation Organic Standards mandate that raw manure must be applied no later than 19 or 120 days before harvest, depending on whether the harvest part of the crop is in contact with the ground. Composted manure that has been turned 5 times in 15 days and reached temperatures between 55 and 75 Celsius, or in Fahrenheit 131 and 172 has no restrictions on application times. A manure must be managed carefully in order to derive the most benefit from it. Some farmers may unwilling to expend the necessary time and effort. Manure must be carefully restored to minimize loss of nutrients, particularly nitrogen. It must be applied to the right kind of crop at the proper time. Also, additional fertilizer may be needed, such as phosphoric oxide, in order to gain full value of the nitrogen and potash that are contained in manure. Manure is fertilizer, graded as approximately 0.5, 0.25 to 0.5 percentages of nitrogen, phosphoric oxide, and potash, with at least 2/3 of the nitrogen in slow-acting forms. Given that these nutrients are mostly in an unmineralized form that cannot be taken up by plants, soil microbes are needed to break down organic matters and transform nutrients into a bioavailable mineralized state or form. In comparison, synthetic fertilizers are already in mineralized form and can be taken up by plants directly. Okay, we need matter that in mineralized form that plant can taken up directly on properly tilled soils. The returns from synthetic fertilizers usually will be greater than from an equivalent amount of manure. However, manure provides many indirect benefits. In supplies humus, which improves the soil's physical character by increasing its capacity to absorb and store water. By enhancements of aeration and by favoring the activities of lower organisms, manure incorporated into the topsoil will help prevent erosion from heavy rain and slow down evaporation of water from the surface. In effect, the value of manure as a mulching material may be greater than its value of a source of essential plant nutrients. Green manuring. Green manuring, I make pause. Yes, green manuring. In reasonability human areas, the practice of green manuring can improve yield and soil qualities. A green manure crop is grown and plowed under for its beneficial effects, although during its growth it may be grazed. These green manure crops are usually annuals, either grasses or legumes, whose roots build not to bacteria capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen. Among the advantages of green manure crops are the addition of nitrogen to the soil, an increase in general fertility, a reduction of erosion, and improvement of physical conduction, and a reduction of nutrient loss from leaching. Disadvantages include the chance of not obtaining satisfactory growth, the possibility that the cost of growing the manure crop may exceed the cost of applying commercial nitrogen, possible increases the disease, insect pests, and nematodes, parasitic forms, and possible exhaustion of soil moisture by crop. Damn it, I not understand this topic. Nitrogen fixation. Close-up view of nitrogen nodules. on fava bean. Okay. Green manure crops are usually planted in the fall and turned under in the spring before the summer crop is sown. Their value as a source of nitrogen, particularly that of the legumes, is unquestioned for certain crops such as potatoes, cotton, and corn. Maize, maize. For other crops such as peanuts, groundnuts themselves, legumes, the practice is questionable. Okay, just continue. I can repeat reading this in a later time. Compost layman methods of application. Fertilizer. Okay. Compost is used in agriculture and gardening primarily as a soil adamant rather than a fertilizer. Compost farmer managing a compost pile in France. Compost adds a rich organic matter and beneficial microbes. Um, it may be incorporated into the soil or mulched on the surface. Compost is used in agriculture and gardening primarily as a soil amendment rather than as fertilizer. Because it has a low content of plant nutrients, it may incorporate it into the soil or mulch it on the surface. Heavy rates of application are common. Compost is basically a mass of rotted organic matter made from waste plant reduces. Addition of nitrogen during decomposition is usually advisable. The result is a crumbly material that when added to soil does not compete with the crop for nitrogen. When properly prepared, it is free of obnoxious odors. Composts commonly contain about 2% nitrogen, 0.5 to 1% phosphorus, and about 2% potassium. The nitrogen of compost becomes available slowly and never approach that available from inorganic sources. This slow release of nitrogen reduces leaching and extends availability over the growing season. Compost are essentially fertilizers with low nutrient content, which explains why large amounts are applied. The maximum benefits of compost on soil structure, better aggregation, poor spacing and water storage, and on crop yields usually occur after several years of use. In practical farming, the use of composted plants reduces must be compared with the use of fresh residues. Most beneficial soil effects usually occur with less labor by simply turning under fresh residues. Also, since one half the organic matter is lost in composting, fresh residues applied at the same rate will cover twice the area that composted reduces will cover. In areas where commercial fertilizers are expensive, labor is cheap and implements are simple. However, compositing meets the need and is a logical practice. Sewage sludge is the solid material remaining from the treatment of sewage. Is not permitted in certified organic farming. Okay. The route it is used in other non-organic settings. After suitable processing, it is sold as fertilizer and as a soil amendment for use on lawns in parks and on golf courses. Use of human biosolids in agriculture is controversial as there are concerns that even treated sewage may harbor harmful bacteria, viruses, pharmaceutical reduces, and heavy metals. Liming. Liming to reduce soil acidity is practiced extensively in humid areas where rainfall leaches calcium and magnesium from the soil, thus created an acid condition. The calcium and magnesium are major plant nutrients supplied by liming materials. Ground limestone is widely used for this purpose. Its active agent, calcium carbonate, reacts with the soil to reduce its acidity. The calcium is then available for plant use. The typical limestones, especially dolomitic, contain magnesium carbonate as well, thus are supplying magnesium to the plant. Marl and chalk are short, impure forms of limestone, and I need to check what leach means. Leach to remove a chemical or metal from a substance by action of a liquid passing through the substance. Okay, limestone. Limestone, carbon, or calcium, so sedimentary rock composed mainly of calcium carbonate, usually in the form of calcite or aragonite. It may contain considerable amounts of magnesium carbonate, dolomite as well, blah blah blah. Limestone with iron irrigations. Okay, calcium carbonate. Calcium CO3. Calcite, the most common form of natural calcium carbonate. Chicago. Oh, we can calcium carbonate find in tablet. Okay. Marrow. Geology. Marrow, old term used to refer to a year's mixture of 5 fine grained minerals. Marrow. The term was applied to a great variety of sediments and rocks with a considerable range of composition. Calcareous marrows grade into clays by diminution in the amount of lime and into clay limestones. Green sand marrows contain the green, potash-rich mica mineral glauconite, widely distributed along the Atlantic coast. In the United States and Europe, they are used as water softness. Chalk. Chalk, soft, 5-grained, easily pulverized, white to grayish variety of limestone. Chalk is composed of the shells of such minute marine organisms as foraminifera, coccolith, and rhabnolides. 99% calcium carbonate. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Marl and chalk are soft, impure forms of limestone and just rocks or soils. Are sometimes used as liming minerals, as are oyster shells. Calcium sulfate gypsum, and carbon chloride, however, are unsuitable for liming. For those, their calcium is ready soluble. What means soluble? Soluble, capable of being dissolved in a liquid. Sugar is soluble in water. Soluble minerals, interesting word. Okay, they leave behind residues in harmful organic standards by the European Union and the US Food and Drug Administration restrict these certain liming agents. Pruned lime and hydrated lime are not permitted for certified organic farms in the US, for example. Lime is applied by mixing it uniformly with the surface layer of the soil. It may be applied at any time of the year and land plowed for spring crops, or winter grain, or on permanent pasture. After applications, plowing, disking, or harrowing will mix it with the soil, such to tillage. What means tillage? Tillage, cultivation soil. In agriculture, the preparation of soil for planting and cultivation of soil after planting. Tillage. Soil after planting. Tillage is a manipulation of the soil into a desired condition by mechanical means. Tools are employed to achieve some desired effect, such as pulverization, cooling, or movement. Soil is titled to change its structure, to kill weeds, and manage crops, reduce residues. Soil structure modifications are often necessary to facilitate to intake, storage, and transmission of water and provide a good environment for seeds and roots. Okay, this is operation of the soil that create good environment for seeds. Such tillage is usually necessary because calcium migrates slowly downward in most soils. Lime is usually applied by tracks, specially equipped and owned by custom operators. Okay, I small understand because I don't know about molecules, about gypsum. Okay, we check this. Methods of application. Fertilizers may be added to the soil in solid, liquid, or gaseous forms, to choice depending on many factors. Generally, the farmer tries to obtain satisfactory yield at minimum cost in money and labor. Manure can be applied as a liquid or a solid. When accumulated as a liquid from livestock areas, it may be stored in tanks until needed and then pumped into a distributing machine or into a sprinkler irrigation system. What means irrigation system? The method reduces labor, but the noxious odors are objectable. The solid manure spreader, which can be also used for compost, conveys the material to the field, shreds it, and spreads it uniformly over the land. The process can be carried out during convenient times, including winter, but rarely when the crop is growing. Damn it. Connection failed. Irrigation system. Irrigation Specialized irrigation equipment watering crops in the fields. Irrigation in agriculture, the artificial application of water to land. Some land requires irrigation before it is possible to use it for any agriculture production. In other places, irrigation is primarily a means to supplement rainfall and serves to increase production. Some land, of course, there is not any irrigation. This practice may be used for non-agricultural purposes to improve the environment. Okay. The water. Okay. Application of granulated or pelleted solid fertilizer has been aided by improvement equipment design. Such devices, depending on design, can deposit fertilizer at the time of planting, sidedress, a growing crop, or broadcast the material fertilizer farmers show in fertilizer. Solid fertilizer distributors have a wide hopper with host in the bottom. Distribution is affected by various means such as rows, agitators, or endless chains traversing the hopper bottom. To go to a driver across a wire, to move or press a move through. Okay. Broadcast distributors have a top-shaped hopper from which the material falls onto the sewing discs that distribute it into a broad swath. Fertilizer attachments are available for most tractor-mounted planters and cultivators, and for grain trees, and some types of plows. They deposit fertilizer with the seed when planted without damage to the seed. The nutrient is readily available during early growth. Placement of the fertilizer varies according to the types of crops. Some crops require bending above the seed, while others are more successful when the fertilizer band is below the seed. The use of liquid and ammonia fertilizers is growing, particularly of anhydrous ammonia, which is handled as a liquid under pressure, but changes to gas when released to atmospheric pressure. Anhydrous ammonia, however, is highly corrosive, inflammable, inflammable, and rather dangerous if not handled properly. Thus, application equipment is specialized. Typically, the applicator is a chisel-shaped blade with a pipe mounted on its rear side to conduct the ammonia 13 to 15 cm 5 to 6 inches below the soil surface. Pipes are fed from a pressure tank mounted above. Mixed liquid fertilizers containing nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium may be applied directly to the soil surface, or as foliar spray by field sprayers where close growing crops are raised. Large areas can be covered rapidly by use of aircraft which can distribute both liquid and dry fertilizer. Okay. Now we know what means fertilizer. The substance that contains the chemical elements and fertilizer used for plants when his nutrition when soil not has nutrients that plants can be needed, and we can add fertilizer to it. Most important elements. Okay, guys, goodbye.